stand, join me in the national anthem.
You know, there is a reason why I like this video, and I chose it for the opening. Often over here in the United States of America, I know inmates get a lot of like bad rap and names thrown towards them, but I want you guys to take a look at this, because right here you have a bunch of veterans who are inmates that likely found themselves in a bad spot, ended up getting, thrown in jail for the time being. And they are invited even over in this tent city to go and play and give respects to the national anthem every morning and every evening over there at that very particular jail. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on over to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. What you just saw was Sheriff Arapio, okay, over, I'm trying to remember the name of the county. Was it Maricopa County? Yeah. Look, either way, I love that. It just shows that, personally, like, everybody makes mistakes and they get back, even vets. Nobody's freaking perfect. All right. It ends up happening, but that doesn't mean that they don't love the country and they're not out there looking for the best. All right. For this country. Now, at the same time, when we talk about that, I want you to know that not all people are created equally. Obviously, we had that ICE attack over here in the United States just the other day down inside of Texas, where you had multiple Antifa terrorists, 11 in total now. I think that we're up to counting. It's either 10 or 11 in counting that the Bureau is looking for in order to come after these guys. And I want to show you guys one of these training videos before we get into the main segment of the show, where we go and talk about how many flipping Russian drones slammed into Kiev last night. And that doesn't include the largest attack that took place the night before. And in both nights, you had ballistic and cruise missiles slamming into Kiev. And all the while that is taking place, Russians can't advance over in the east. They're stuck outside of Sumy and have been for the last 30 days, as we predicted here on this channel last month. It was all the way back on June 4th. I had to go back and actually check on it. They haven't moved a tiny inch. As a matter of fact, they've actually lost terrain over there. And that is likely the reason we're seeing such large retaliation coming from the Russians slamming into Kiev, because they can't move on the freaking battlefield. Their new offensive operation that ended up getting launched in the south, well, that's going nowhere as well. Marco Rubio ended up meeting up with Lavrov. That didn't go anywhere. Just FYI, we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to talk about Netanyahu meeting up with the Secretary of Defense over inside the Pentagon and what that's likely going to mean for Iran. We're going to take a closer look at the operations that are going on over in the Gaza Strip. Now, I want to show you guys this video about, again, homegrown violent extremists, in my opinion, are the largest threat to the United States of America. This is an Antifa terrorist that is currently wanted by the FBI. His name is Benjamin Song. He's going to be the one in the gray shorts over there on the left. And what he's actually doing is, number one, this is probably one of the most cringe training videos I've ever seen. And if Antifa is actually using this to train people, for this attack, which likely it was, I mean, it's just here.
Right. This is called getting online. Getting online means we are in a line. Right. Neither one of us is firing from behind each other. Once we're online, move to your right quickly. Right. They're gonna run into me. They're not going to run in front of me. Does that make sense? Okay. When we need to move around each other,
now,
obviously we're going to.
This is just a tiny portion of a very long training video that this gentleman put together for those Antifa terrorists to go over and target those ICE agents down in Texas. And I mean, you got to give it to them. At least they're getting a little bit organized. This is some very, very basic firearms training, but I want you to picture these are the people that were attacking those ICE agents, and that all of their training consisted of a freaking video. Now, likely they did some other stuff, but it definitely shows the organization of Antifa over here in the United States of America and the BS that they do in order to make an impact on the target. Zach Presley says, definitely should start each stream this way with our national anthem. You know what? I kind of might agree with that statement. I used to end each stream with daily devotional, and those are going to be coming back. I decided that those are going to start coming back next week. There's a personal reason why those ended up not coming out. All right. And I stopped doing those, but that is what it is. But we're going to have those coming back next week, and those go on at the end of every podcast. And I think a great addition to that would likely be the national anthem at the beginning of every single video. But key takeaway from that is that these Antifa terrorists are very, very organized, right? They are putting together more training, and it is violent, right? A lot of people look at Antifa as just people that here in the United States are going to, start riots, cause fires, throw rocks, throw fireworks, things of that nature. And the reality is that they're getting more and more violent, and that they are actually seeking out people that have some better experience to start going after. Now, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov did meet up with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio over in Malaysia today. Isn't that cute? Little photo op between the two sitting over inside of the terrorist country of Malaysia. But just so you guys are aware, nothing really ended up coming out of this. They ended up going into that meeting for a grand total of 50 minutes, 50 minutes. They both flew their happy butts all the way over to Malaysia to meet up to discuss a possible ceasefire moving forward with Ukraine. Now, there is very little information that has kind of come out on that. Associated Press has an article that they ended up putting out. Rubio says U.S. and Russia have exchanged new ideas for Ukrainian peace talks. Well, that's all great. And basically what this ends up telling you is that Rubio has to take these ideas back to Donald Trump. Donald Trump then has to take these ideas and try to go pitch them to Zelensky, hoping that somehow that is going to create some sort of peace over inside of Ukraine. And I think this goes back to misunderstanding the entire reason Russia is over inside of Ukraine. It's just not going to happen. And Ukraine's stance, the fact that the United States is even attempting to do this right now, I think is kind of funny. It's like trying to sit down with Hamas and convince Hamas that they need to stop riding on Israel, that they need to stop attacking them. Just for reference, it's just not going to happen. Let's see here. Matt Borgeson says, this is just yet another example is why we are just 10 years away from an American civil war. Honestly, this will get worse until it does happen. I don't think we're going to have a civil war here in the United States, at least not in a traditional sense. When you look at civil wars, there's a lot of things that happen leading up to it. Now, there is certainly some signs of it, right, of a civil war in the United States. You've got states that are creating their own gold-backed currency that's legal tender inside of those states, but you have organized militias in each one of these states. You obviously have opposing parties and all this other crap. But the one thing that you're actually missing is a leader, organized, defined shadow government, and really that pissed off amount of American people that are willing to do something about it. We just simply don't have that here in the United States. And I don't think that we're going to have a traditional civil war in that sense. I think we're going to have people acting out and being stupid. And I think the U.S. government is going to end up cracking down on them, the federal government and the state governments combined. I think are getting sick of all these little terrorist piles of garbage. And it is just kind of one of those things that over time, when you ignore these crimes and you allow these crimes to persist, they just get more and more violent because they figure, well, we got away with it over here. All we got to do now is just push a little bit harder on the government and they're going to back away. And the reality is that they end up getting crushed the more and more crap that they end up doing. But thanks for that comment, Matt. I know there is a lot of Americans that are concerned about the Civil War. I just don't see it happening here in the United States of America. Linda Lou says, Matt, Banana Gang is here for you always. Hell yeah, Linda. Appreciate you. All right, so let's get back over here. So this meeting between Marco Rubio and Lavrov, it's not going anywhere. It literally got nowhere. They got some ideas out of it. They're going to take the ideas back. They're just going to continue to talk. And this is 1 week prior to talks that are scheduled to take place with Iran as well. And those Iranian talks are likely to result in net zero as well. And we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. First, we're going to go talk about Kiev and what actually took place over in Ukraine, because for the last 2 days in a row, they've been getting slammed each night by ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drones, everything. And I mean, Russia is throwing the kitchen sink at them, and they're causing significant amounts of damage over inside of Kiev and killing a lot of people. Matt Borgeson says, honestly, Russia is more likely to have a civil war if they stay in Ukraine for a few more years. Now, Matt, that is something I actually kind of see and agree with, because we already saw some of those movements taking place over inside of Russia, right? Like we did. Obviously, we saw Wagner Group just a couple years ago go to ride up and go to take on Moscow. And we see a lot of people that are pissed off. We see Russia now at this point that is taking foreigners. And this is not a joke, ladies and gentlemen. I talked about it last week. Russia is so low on people. They are actually taking foreigners that are coming into their country on visas. I've heard of Americans getting taken, and I've heard of people from Africa getting taken, and they get conscripted and they get thrown in the Russian army and shoved up over the front line. People are pretty damn sick of it over inside of Russia. The streets are filled with women, not a lot of men to be found. And, people are just kind of getting sick of the war. Stone Cold Rob says, good morning, Matt. 11 Charlie in the house again. Enforcer sucks. I mean, I've never watched the Enforcer, so I can't back that comment up. Tom Bone says the American people in general, i.e. the silent majority, are sick of it. Yeah, I would agree with you on that, right? Not a lot of people are happy about everything that's been taking place inside of the United States. The MAGA movement, which I don't agree. I think it's gotten taken way out of context and way out of control, but ultimately it is, people that were sick of a corrupt government. And now, they take it to this new extreme, and you have these people that are speaking for MAGA, and people are getting freaking sick of them as well, because they took their ideas and they took their beliefs, and the loudest voices in that arena are just kind of off to the side. And I've sat there and I've debated them in front of tens of thousands of people and explained to them why they're ridiculous and why they're out of control, why they don't know any better, and they're speaking on subjects that they shouldn't. Agree, America ought to be first, and as I sit here and I report on Ukraine and I talk about what's going on in Ukraine, America ought to be first. And I think that it is important that we support Ukraine for the United States of America, not because I'm, Ukraine over America. No, I'm 100% America over Ukraine. There was a lot of people pissed off that the interceptors ended up getting taken away from Ukraine and getting, reallocated, and then we end up sending some more, somewhere else. But that's just a system of checks and balances to make sure that U.S. troops are safe and that the United States is safe before any other country. And once that was established, now we're sending some more stuff out heading their way. And I agree with that decision if that was the case. And I haven't seen all the facts, so I couldn't tell you that. Matt Borgeson says Republicans will lose this midterm election, but they can make a comeback with some better decisions. Yeah, I really don't want to get into politics that deep over here on this channel. Not really my freaking, cup of tea or anything that I want. But I do think that Republican Party and the Democrat Party both are just filled with retards, for lack of better terms. And I can use that word now. Apparently, I can use that word again. Rob said I get demonetized if I used it. I think that it actually hasn't affected the channel quite a bit, and I've been using it. So over inside of Kiev, we have 400 attack drones, and 200 out of those 400 ended up being Shaheeds. On top of that, we had just about 20 ballistic and cruise missiles also that were fired over inside of Kiev overnight, slamming into all sorts of different crap. I mean, all sorts of different stuff. I'm going to take you guys over there right now and just show you some of the destruction that took place. So it's, as I sit here and plays through, it's funny to me that there is a ton of people in this world that are complaining about war crimes and what Israel is doing over inside of Gaza. But for some reason, they ignore things like this, where we have Russia that is just destroying Kiev, right? Destroying Kiev. None of these that you end up seeing up pictured on your screen are military objectives, military targets. There is no reason for them to be slamming into these things with the mass volume of fire that they're doing. And the reason they're doing it, in Matt's opinion, is that they're getting pissed off. They're getting pissed off because they're not getting what they want as far as the negotiations go. And they're also not getting what they want over on the front line. Over inside of Sumy, the Russians ended up throwing 50,000 soldiers. 50,000. Into the fight over inside of Sumy, and they haven't been able to make it a square inch ahead of where, like we talked about last month. And yet, right, and yet, even though they have like thrown all of those troops, they're getting slaughtered. And yet, yesterday, frontline assessments are showing that Ukraine actually ended up taking back one of those villages from Russia, and we're going to go over that in here in just a minute. Sean Hughes says, "Good morning, Speak the Truth family. At what point do you think America will say enough and stop letting Russia FA before they FO?" It's a very good question. Right. And this is something that I've talked about previously when we talk about, Iran, and we talk about Russia, and we talk about Israel, and how they're all intertwined between the different terrorist networks, BRICS, Russian money, Russian oil, and how they need to get all of that like Russian money, like through the sale of oil, right, in order to fund their war effort. Going after China is actually going after Russia when they end up getting a lot of their supplies from over there as well. And so the more that we were doing that stuff in the back channels, and that's affecting Russia up over on the front lines and slowing them down quite significantly, it's pissing off Russia. The one thing that we needed Russia for likely was for our peace talks with Iran. And right now we are still in those talks with Iran. I had actually said that after these talks are over, after we're done, messing around with Iran, is when we're going to start seeing more stuff open up over inside of Ukraine. And that's still my assessment. Problem is that we still have more talks that are scheduled for next week with Iran. And so we will pull off the FAFO gloves when we're done with Iran. We need Russia as far as Iran is concerned when it goes down to the uranium enrichment that they have taking place on the ground. We need them in order to go in there, dismantle those factories. Look, Russia's already got scientists on the ground, and they've been there for well over a decade, helping Iran with this nuclear or uranium enrichment facilities and all of that crap. Basically, like, I hate to call it their nuclear weapons program, but there's no other reason for them to have uranium enriched up to and beyond 87%, right? And those were trace amounts that were found, but they had over 900 pounds of 60+% enriched uranium, which they don't need for anything but nuclear weapons. You guys all know this. That's why you watch this channel, right? But Russia's on the ground over there right now. And if we're going into more talks with Iran next week, we still need Russia. I hate to say that, but Iran's not going to trust anybody else to go in and dismantle this freaking program. They're obviously not going to allow the United States to go in there and do it. And Russia's already on the ground. So why wouldn't we do that? There's a reason that Zelensky, or I'm sorry, not Zelensky. There's a reason that Netanyahu ended up stating, we are not going to attack this location with Russian scientists at it, and we left that uranium enrichment facility alone. The United States didn't bomb it, and neither did Israel. And so those Russians are still on the ground. Now, it's my opinion that as soon as we're done with all of that crap, that is when we're going to open up on Russia. Right, that is when we're going to kind of like metaphorically take the gloves off and allow Ukraine to do what it needs to do and give them the different things that they need. But right now, as far as existential threats to the United States, because Trump is an America first president, what he's worried about is Iran, and he's worried about their nuclear weapons. We're going to play nice with Putin. And I don't like that game of politics, but it's just a simple fact that that's all it is a game of politics. So that'll iron itself out here in the near future. But going back over into Kiev, yeah, I see peace talks, haha, and everybody's laughing, right? I'm with you on that. When we go back over to Kiev and we see what Russia's doing, I mean, it's a huge attack. I mean, and this has been ongoing, and they're likely going to get hit again and again and again. I don't know how much longer Russia is going to be able to keep this up because of the strikes that took place over inside of Iran, ended up knocking out a bunch of the key materials that they need in order to produce those Shahed drones that they're firing over at Ukraine. But at the same time, right. But at the same time, Russia has also been able to build these things within their own country, and they are sourcing new material from China in order to keep the production going. So it is a problem, right? It is a problem, and it's going to get solved. It's just going to take like some sweet freaking time over there. Skyline of freaking Kiev looked like absolute hell. All right. Ballistic missiles slamming in there, cruise missiles slamming in their drones. I gave you guys the figure. I mean, that's just an ungodly amount, right? When this was happening with Israel, people were losing their damn minds. Air alert inbound right now. Here you go. you know, when this was happening over inside Israel, people are losing their minds and they're saying, why is it, right, that Iran is allowed to do these things, but it happens over in Ukraine and everybody turns a blind eye? Wouldn't Russia just cover up for Iran? So that is like kind of the issue that they're facing right now, I think, and that's one of the holdups that they end up having. So yeah, I do think that Russia would cover up for Iran. You want me to break down the Shanghai Agreement because it receives zero coverage and plays a huge role? Okay, we'll break down the Shanghai Agreement. D. Pensider said he needs to build me my own website for me to stream to. Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. It would probably help out with a lot of this stuff. This is Ukraine this morning over inside of Kiev. That's a look at Kiev this morning. And just smoke rising up on the horizon. So, I mean, I don't know when the international community is finally going to get fed up of it. Here's a good graphical representation of the amount of crap that got fired at Kiev yesterday. I mean, it's quite a bit. You can see, you know, some other ones went, but for the most part, everything was centered over on Kiev. Now, I want you to imagine all of those damn things being inbound into, you know, like your key city or, you know, any city. I mean, that is a buttload of drones. And that is, by definition, as far as I'm concerned, terrorism. Right? You're using violence to push a political agenda, which their political agenda is going to be taken off. It's also, you could call it war. I would end up calling this a buttload of war crimes. This isn't World War II, right? Where we're carpet bombing everything. We know exactly where those freaking things are going to end up impacting. And for that reason alone, the international community should be really pissed off. This isn't Iran. This is Russia.
I don't know what happened to my apartment. When I left, it was intact, but there is a fire in the building. Maybe it will burn down before the firefighters extinguish it. You can see the fire flaring up.
So there you have like civilian homes, everything else that's like being slammed by these freaking Russian drones over there. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Blip says, so glad the catastrophe artists turned out to be wrong when they claimed Trump was going to screw the Ukrainians. Look, that's also something I try to tell you guys, right? Like that the Trump administration isn't going to let Russia win, that he's also retarded when it comes to like the Eastern European like mind frame and mindset. I didn't think he had a good grasp or understanding on Ukraine. That was predictable, and that it would also take a little bit of time. But I didn't see us cutting off support for Ukraine because Russia is really obvious, as far as I'm concerned, is going after the U.S. dollar with BRICS and trying to collapse the United States of America from within that way. They're not looking to take the U.S. head on. They're looking to cause instability around the Middle East, get us to commit more of our forces, more of our munitions, more of our money over to the Middle East conflict. That's going to open up the lines over inside of Ukraine, try to draw equipment away that way. It's also going to put us deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. And I think his goal is to be able to basically use BRICS to collapse the U.S. dollar. And we've certainly seen some signs of that coming. And for that reason alone, I believe the United States of America is going to continue to support Ukraine on top of a lot of other things, right? Like there's other things that go into it, believe me, that Trump is aware of. That's really sad that that place ended up getting hit as well, downtown inside Kiev. I mean, it's just the destruction that is taking place over there in some of these different locations and what Russia has actually hit. This is a short one, but there should be a longer one here in just a sec. This is like showing the rail system and things like that that's over inside of Kiev. And ooh, here we go, firefighters and whatnot that are up over on the scene trying to extinguish some more fires. We've got yeah, where to go? Dang it, did I not put it in the stack? I don't think I did. I had one that actually shows like the drone strikes over on some of these rail lines and stuff like that over inside of Kiev. I guess I didn't put it in there. That's my bad. But don't worry, we're going to be moving on a sec. Ladies and gentlemen, that is downtown urban populated centers. And like I said, you know, when we looked at what was taking place over in Ukraine, people were like not in Ukraine, over in Israel, as Russia or as Iran is firing all the ballistic missiles, as Iran is firing their drones. You know, people are pissed because one apartment building ended up getting struck and a couple people ended up getting killed. This shit is happening on a daily basis over inside of Ukraine. And I don't think it's getting nearly enough attention. Like mainstream media has pretty much, you know, tired of talking about it. They don't want it. They don't want to. We on this channel have also fallen into the trap of going over and reporting on Israel in the Middle East conflict because it's kind of like the sexy thing. The U.S. is involved, one of our allies, all that other crap. A lot of, just all sorts of crap. But at the end of the day, once all of that happened and we all shifted our focus, we started to see Russia uptick things over inside of Ukraine. And I'm not going to let them get away with it. I'm at least going to do my part and sit here and call Russia out for their bull crap that they end up doing on like these Ukrainians. Now, at the same time, right, I told you that the FSB is still really deep over inside of Ukraine. All right, the SBU colonel, Ivan Voronich, ended up getting assassinated, and it was actually like captured on freaking TV. All right, like the dude out in freaking broad daylight ended up taking a bunch of freaking shots to the face, all right, from a silenced pistol. Right, check that out. Ends up just getting freaking assassinated in broad daylight. All of these things are still taking place over inside of Ukraine. Nobody seems to give a shit. Now, in Russia's defense, Ukraine has, in Matt's opinion, Ukraine has been taking out key Russian officials over inside of, Russia as well. We've seen car bombs going off. We've seen targeted assassinations. We've seen all of that stuff over there. To have this one captured on video over inside of Kiev of a guy with a freaking pistol that just walks up, blasts a dude in broad daylight. I mean, that's freaking insane. You know, to me, anyways, that is taking like place over there. I would hope that SBU is able to like find and catch this guy if he's not already back in Russia. I do have a different photograph, but I'm not going to show that because they're going to get pissed off if I end up showing it over on this channel. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth ended up meeting up with Netanyahu over inside of the Pentagon yesterday. Why is Hegseth meeting up with Netanyahu? That's a very good question.
Did you know how many times I've been in this room?
You'd have to tell me. Possibly more than me.
But not with that picture on the wall. Not with that picture on the wall.
Not with that picture, and not without Eric Carilla down there at the end of the table. Not with that.
And thank you. Absolute thanks and gratitude. And
It's all fine and dandy that they ended up holding their little like PR stunt meeting and everything, and they allow cameras to go in there. You got Israeli and U.S. flags. They're stacked up next to each other. It looks really great. But U.S. has continued to try to get peace talks with Hamas, which I think we all have realized at this point are completely and totally failing. But the one thing that ended up coming out yesterday is that Israel is looking like or preparing to bomb Iran yet again. And the reason they're doing that is because Iran's not holding up to their end of the deal. Iran, beyond the shadow of a doubt now, has launched and cut loose their proxy organizations across the Middle East. So they're going after Israel and they're attacking them with their proxy organizations. They're doing it through the Houthis down inside Yemen. They're doing it with Hezbollah up inside of Lebanon, and they're continuing to cause more and more issues. Meanwhile, Israel is doing its best to try to like move forward a little bit through this. They have launched ground assaults over inside of Lebanon yesterday, taking out key Hezbollah targets. They've launched numerous airstrikes over inside of Lebanon over the last week, and the Houthis seem to be unimpeded. Nobody's doing a damn thing about them. Over the last 48 hours, the Houthis have sunk 2 merchant vessels down inside of the Red Sea. They've actually killed up to 5 crew members of the last Greek operated vessel that they went after, and then they targeted and released a video yesterday of ballistic missiles going after it. I couldn't imagine them discussing anything other than that continuing threat and what the United States and what Israel are going to do about it. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't just impact Israel and it doesn't just impact the United States of America. This impacts international shipping lanes. And when you start screwing with people's money, I've said this before, You know, my old man, he told me there's 3 things that you don't screw with in a man's life. You don't screw with his family, you don't screw with his money, and you don't screw with his food. Those 3 things. And right now, what they're screwing with is they're screwing with everybody's money. That money on an international level is huge, and it affects trade here in the United States, the EU, and like all across the freaking world, because the Red Sea is essentially shut down. Like 90+% of the merchant traffic is still going around the Red Sea. Like they're going all the way around Africa, avoiding it. And that is a huge international security issue. It's a massive issue when it goes down to economics. It's a massive issue when it goes down to people putting food on their table, right? You start affecting oil prices. You start affecting all of these other things. Who benefits from that the most by the Red Sea being shut down? Russia, China, all of these BRICS nations. And the one part that I asked people to look into, there's over 1,000 of you guys sitting in here right now. One thing I asked you guys to look into, because I need to do it as well, is Egypt. Egypt is a BRICS nation, and they are losing a buttload of money through this merchant traffic not going through the Suez Canal. It is an absurd amount of money every single ship pays to go through the Suez Canal, and Egypt hasn't been collecting that for well over a year. So where are they making up for it in the end? Massive amounts of Russian oil, massive amounts of Chinese ships, everything else is going through the Red Sea. I've got a feeling that that is going to be addressed here in the very near future. Whether or not we end up bombing Iran right away, different question. Going after the Houthis inside Yemen is definitely on the table, and I would suspect that the United States and Israel end up getting their act together and developing a plan to go after the Houthis in order to stop that aggression that they have taken place down inside the Red Sea. Now, as Israel is continuing on, with operations inside Gaza, the question is, where are they going to end up putting everybody? And as I've assessed long ago, that they're likely going to end up going into Syria. That's why they're making friends with Jolani. Problem is, new video of Jolani ended up coming out from 2014. Check this shit out.
هذا المشروع الذي ينتظره منكم اليوم أهل غزة الذين يخطئون ونبشركم جميعا أنه لا يفصل بيننا وبين اليهود سوى سياج فيه أمتار على مساحة شاسعة وواسعة ولو وردنا رميهم بالحجار لقذفناهم الله أكبر وما المسلمون ينتظرون هذه اللحظة منذ أن أعلن وعد بالفور عام 1920 إلى هذا اليوم والأمة تذوق الذل والهوان من جراء هذا الوعد الذي تخاذل فيه المسلمون في ذاك الوقت. واليوم أنتم حملتم هذه الأمانة والمسلمون ينتظرونكم بفارغ الصبر لكي تنهوا مهمتكم في الشمال حتى تنتقلوا لقتال اليهود بعون الله عز وجل. ويا غدي حنا معاك إلى الموت. يا غدي حنا معاك إلى الموت. حنا معاك إلى الموت يا رجال حنا معاك إلى الموت يا أختا حنا معاك إلى الموت يا أختا حنا معاك إلى الموت.
You guys get the idea yet? This is who Netanyahu and this is who the United States are making freaking drug deals with. I told you, once a terrorist, always a terrorist. You don't have those radical religious ideologies for no reason. Now, this was in 2014, so this is 11 years stale. 11 years stale. And what's important for you to understand is that that man that's up there on your screen that was labeled as a freaking terrorist that led a freaking designated foreign terror organization until just a couple days ago when the U.S. ended up removing their designation. All right. This gentleman, all right, had been fighting for those radical ideological beliefs for well over a decade. Well over a decade. You do not commit your life to that. You do not commit that many men to die. You do not fight that freaking hard for that freaking long for something that you're willing to just randomly give up. So one of two things is true. Either Jolani ended up gaslighting all of HTS into this radical ideological belief, thinking that he actually has it. You'd have to subscribe to that Jolani basically gaslit all of HTS, all of the Al-Nusra Front, all right, to think that he was against the Jews, against Israel, was all about freaking mass murder and all that crap. Or you have to believe that right now, currently, he's gaslighting the West and he's going to end up going back on his word. He's using this to put himself in a position of power, position of control. And once he's strong enough, he's going to flick those beliefs right back on and it's going to start causing more issues. And the worst part about it is we don't really have another option. We don't have another option for where to put these people that are over inside Gaza. And I think that is exactly why that we are doing our best to work with Jelani right now. I don't like it. I don't agree with the decision. I don't think we should. I'm just telling you that this is where it's going. And it would be wrong of me not to show you guys this information. It's important for you to understand that this man, the current, leader of Syria, all right, the enacting or acting president of Syria is a freaking radical ideologist. All right. And he's pushing it and he hates him. CD8 says, does the Greek shit trigger Article 5 of NATO? No, it does not. It does not trigger Article 5. All right. But we do have the right to enforce maritime law. That noise makes my trigger finger twitch. Yeah, yours and mine both, brother. Yours and mine both. I think that that this is going to end up turning out kind of bad. It's going to work out good for the meantime, but I've said it before. We are trading short-term security for long-term chaos. We're allowing this guy to build up over inside of Syria. We're allowing him to gain speed. We're allowing him to gain traction. We're allowing him to get like a better stage on the international level. And so when he finally flips that switch, we're screwed. All right. And he's going to be more strong and more powerful. But the problem is we got nowhere to put the Palestinian people over inside Gaza. They're already complaining down over inside Rafah that the IDF plans on moving everybody into Rafah, into a new safe zone that they can actually control. And so the people are kind of pissed off about that. Now, interesting enough, I know a lot of people are concerned about Iran and what's going on over there. This is a short video. It's like 3 or 5 seconds long of this guy's freaking money, but I'm just going to put it up on the screen because it doesn't really matter. This is the Iranian currency, and I want you to take a look. Somebody had actually gone through and stamped the Star of David on there with some writing in Hebrew. I can't read that. If anybody else wants to, go for it. Read that for me and put it down in the comment section. I don't really know what that says in Hebrew, but it's very interesting to see that popping up on the currency over inside of Iran. Smokey Sargent says, when will they learn that the enemy of my enemy is my friend is a razor's edge that always ends in getting cut? Allying with long term never works. Yeah, I'm with you. All right, we ended up not learning our lesson with the Taliban, and even over inside of Iraq, where we stood up a friendly government, where we have those things, right? We have a U.S. presence inside of Iraq. We still have issues with the Iraqi government. We still have issues with certain factions over inside of Iraq. We still have many terrorists that are going after U.S. service members, U.S. bases, countering U.S. interests within the region, right? Over inside of that country. Now, the Iraqi government is doing their best to go off it, but that is about as successful as we have ever gotten doing that. But even then, how long was the United States in Iraq? Hell, we're still there to this day. We had to secure their elections. We had to do all sorts of stuff just to get to that stage. That's not what's taking place inside Syria. We're going to have very little oversight on what's going on. All right. Over inside of Iran, there's definitely still signs that you might have a regime change, that people are still pissed off. I ended up talking quite a bit about this in the last 48 hours on why. All right, people feel that there's a regime change that's going to be possible over inside of Iran, and it's Matt's opinion, all right, that regime change is still possible, but it's been set way back since the bombing stopped, because Iran went around, they started killing everybody. They started deporting all of the Afghans. Now, there was a video going around showing that Iran was taking these Afghans and putting them on buses, and they're shipping them across the border back in Afghanistan. Turns out, yeah, that's quasi true, but they still ended up murdering a buttload of the Afghans that they thought were working for Mossad. So the ones that they didn't really have anything on, it's alleged, all right, that they ended up shipping them back to Afghanistan. I never saw a video of them walking back across the border. I did see videos of the Afghans being executed and killed, but I haven't seen any of them going back across the border. It wouldn't surprise me if Iran threw them on the buses, took a propaganda video saying, look, see, we're civilized. We're sending them back to where they came from. And then after the cameras turned off, the buses went over to the gallows and ended up hanging these damn people in the street. Unfortunately, internet has been cut off numerous times over in Iran, and there's not a hell of a lot of information that's coming out of there. All right. What we are getting more information on is coming out of northern Gaza, where the IDF ended up getting ambushed the other day and losing 5 of their soldiers over in Beit Hanan. All right. The IDF cordoned off the area, had been bombing the crap out of it, and right now has an ongoing offensive operation up over inside of the north. This operation in the north, they say that there's not that many terrorists. They just said dozens. Okay. Not hundreds, but dozens of them that are over inside that area. So they're going to be taking their sweet time clearing out that area and going through it. I told you guys this is going to be a slow, methodical fight all the way across Gaza, and you just got to be patient with it. Yeah, it is sad, Linda. It's sad and it is evil, right? And it's what else is sad is the amount of people that are trying to gaslight Americans and gaslight the West. The Iranian regime is somehow some peaceful organization, all right? They're not. Absolutely not. I can go on for freaking days about why they're not. All right. Down inside of Khan Yunis, the IDF has been fighting pretty hard. I reported to you guys yesterday. IDF was pushing across Khan Yunis. For those of you guys who are unaware, maybe I ought to get this up on a map because, you know, I'm sure there's like first-time viewers and stuff on this channel. If you are a first-time viewer of this channel, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe. All right, click the subscription, click the subscribe button, free to subscribe, free to smash that freaking like button. Make sure your notification bells turn on because when crazy stuff goes down, we are here and we are going to be telling you what the heck is going on. I'm going to take you guys on the map over into Gaza, all right, as I freaking get out and go, like, you know, tune into this area, okay? The area I was talking about where the IDF soldiers ended up getting ambushed was over in Beni Anan. All right, down over here. And that's where they currently have the area cordoned off. What we're talking about is all the way down here inside of Khan Yunis, and it's over by Rafah. And the IDF is pushing very hard, going from the east to the west, kind of crunching everybody over towards Al-Mawasi. And they're getting pretty close to some of the encampments and stuff like that where the refugees, all right, are at down there. And the plan is to take those people and to move them into Rafah, which is all the way down here, okay, by the border, in a much more secure area. From there, they can take the humanitarian aid and shove it in and then likely start funneling these people out into Jelani's territory up in Syria. To me, it's a horrible idea. I don't agree with it, but it is. I mean, they're making the best out of a dang situation. 18 dang months as a banana gang member. Oorah, says BB88. Hell yeah, buddy. Hell yeah. Rah. All right. I'm not even a Marine, but I just like how you guys say rah. It just like makes me smile. Here's a look at some of the operations that took place over in Khan Yunis. Here you see, I believe it's a tunnel network. I believe they described at least 500 meters of tunnels being destroyed, executed over 100 targets within the last 24 hours. Dozens of Hamas terrorists ended up getting killed over inside of Khan Yunis, and they're pushing very hard. And it makes sense why the IDF is pushing so hard inside of Khan Yunis right now, because in order to secure Rafah and have a buffer zone, all right, they need to secure Khan Yunis, and Khan Yunis has a buttload of Hamas terrorists over inside of it. On top of that, you have multiple humanitarian aid distribution points that are located down there as well. So they need to be able to take those suckers out, and they need to secure that area to keep them like back. Yeah, I see people like wondering what happened to Rob again in the chat. Rob's a cop, baby. Rob's a cop. He's working in law enforcement. He's given up his freaking podcast life to go work hard inside there. All right. But the scenes, all right, that are coming out of Khan Yunis that are being posted do show, all right, these bombings taking close proximity to Mawasi. They show some of them taking close proximity to some of these encampments of where the refugees are at, and people are finally packing up and getting the heck out of Dodge. Question is, where are they going? Only place for them to go at this point, because the north is now shut off, is down into Rafah. Colby McCurdy says, hey, Matt, I'm trying to pursue a career as a Leo. Do you have any advice for myself as anyone else that might want to do the same thing? Thank you so much. Yeah, obviously. I don't know what your background is. I have no idea. When you go into testing, you have some, like when you go to take the test, you're always going to start off most of the time with like a written test, right? Start off with your application. All right. You got to understand that you're going into law enforcement, and going into law enforcement is a lot of report writing and attention to detail. So even on your application that you originally fill out, it needs to be as detailed as possible, and it needs to be thorough, and make sure there's not spelling errors, for the love of God. You got to figure that every law enforcement agency, every time they open up positions and start accepting applications, has a buttload of people that they need to screen through. If you show up with writing like a kindergartner, like Trump's letter that he ended up penning the other day, with just a bunch of spelling errors, likely they're going to take your application and they're going to throw it in the trash. You got to have good written communication skills. So start off with your application. Then when it goes into the written exam, make sure that you show up with your basic math skills down, okay, and exercising common sense. Don't overthink anything that's on that written exam. Just exercise common sense. There's different tests online that you can pay for that'll help you prep for that. That's actually what I did before I took my test to get into law enforcement. And it's like $10 or something to take one of the tests. And they're actually very helpful. They do help out quite a bit for the written exam. From there, treat everything like understand and learn about the city, right? And don't lie. The city, the county, or the state, whatever it is that you're looking for when you go in for your different interviews, make sure that you have the different facts about the location that you're getting into down, and don't lie. One of the common questions that they like to ask in like some of their board interviews is like, if you pull over your mom, she's doing like 95 and a 55, are you going to give her a ticket? Right? And people are like, hell yeah, I'd give my mom a ticket. Well, nobody wants you as a cop, man, because you're an asshole, right? Anybody that gives their mom a freaking ticket, you're a jackwagon, right? Like, don't give your mom a ticket. It's okay to say that, right? Like, use some freaking discretion. To your mom's butt, make fun of her, take her freaking time, like, do whatever. But you don't have to ticket your mom just because you caught her doing dirty stuff, okay? Like, you have the option of discretion. And so a lot of that goes into it. And be freaking honest, right? Like, you don't have to lie on any of those exams in order to get into freaking law enforcement. You really don't. When you go in for your polygraph exam, right? When you go in for your lie detector test, because you're going to take one, again, be honest. Don't be nervous. Take a deep breath before you go in there, and just be honest about everything you did. I got asked about like thefts. I got asked about arrests. I got asked about drug use. I got asked about be prepared for weird stuff, sex with animals. I died laughing when the guy asked me questions about whether or not I had partaken in bestiality. And I was like, dude, you got to be kidding me, man. Right. And I'm like, at the end of it, I end up asking the guy, hey, how many people actually end up getting like kicked out because of bestiality? He's like, dude, you would be surprised. So if you're into any of that crap, do us all a favor and don't apply. Go into it for the right reasons. Don't be an asshole. Show up as a sponge, like be humble yourself and try to learn. Right. When I first went and I got in, because once you're in, it ain't over. Right. Like now you got to go through FTO and everything else and pass the academy. One of my first FTOs, field training officers, ended up asking me, like, we got in the car and he's like, dude, don't know really what I'm going to be able to teach you. Kind of cool to have you in the car, blah, 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 blah. Right. And I told him, I was like, look, dude, I don't need special treatment because of my background. All right. Bottom line is I don't know how to be a law enforcement officer. Tactics, got it down pat. But what I need to learn is to be a law enforcement officer, and I want to be a damn sponge and be eager. Ask them to do things, ask to learn, ask to see different things like as you're going through it. When you go to do your ride along, because if after you pass multiple stages of your interviews, right, you pass your written exam, you pass interviews, etc., they're going to schedule you for a ride along with an officer. That is a job interview while you're in the car. Treat it as such. All right. Make sure that you show up on time. Make sure that you're dressed appropriately. All right. Ask questions. And by the way, try to help out. Try to actually show that you give a crap and you want to be a part of that community. All of those things matter going into it. Just throwing all that out there. Now, humanitarian aid, I've been harping on it quite a bit, and I want to remind you guys of something, right? U.S. contractors are the sole distributors of humanitarian aid right now over inside of Gaza. All right. Like 25 million plus meals, I think, at this point have been delivered over inside of Gaza to the Gazans through the private military contractors, through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. I ended up showing you guys a bunch of humanitarian aid that was stacked up over on the border, over inside of Gaza, right? But the UN is not participating. As a matter of fact, we defunded UNRWA. Israel doesn't allow them to operate. And I want to remind you guys as to why. This is a video that ended up coming out last year down in the south near Rafah. And what you're actually looking at is Hamas terrorists that are armed and working side by side with the UN. And you're going to see in just a minute these Hamas terrorists with their AKs climbing into freaking pickup trucks right outside of the UN facility, obviously working directly with the UN. Immediately following this incident, the reason these videos ended up coming to light is because last year they ended up stating that Israel ended up targeting UN humanitarian aid workers, and it proved via this video that these are the pieces of crap that ended up being targeted by the IDF down outside of Rafah. All of this stuff. And then you also have them targeting civilians as well. Jack Ray says, my bro is a Virginia magistrate. Keep up with the law ongoing to not mess up the arrest. Do that right or lose the cases. That's a fact. Sergeant Smokey says, every training I've had, I went into it with the mentality that I didn't know anything, even if I already had base to work off. Yeah, exactly, man. Like, just be a sponge and soak up anything that you can get. Worst case scenario, you learn one thing. If you choose not to use stuff, you choose not to use it. But at the end of the day, it's another tool in your toolkit. Even if you don't like the person, even if you don't like how it goes, like, it's another tool in your toolkit, man. I want people to be successful in what it is that they want to do, and I have no problem giving out advice on all of those different things. Now, the one thing that I told you guys about that I completely forgot to cover as we were going over the Ukraine side of the fight was earlier last month, where the Russians ended up getting held up in Sumy. I did an entire video on this talking about how the Russians were moving into a massive trap and that they were going to get stuck. I ended up throwing this graphic. I put this graphic together to explain to you why the Russians were doing what they were doing and where they were going. Turned out to be 100% accurate. I also told you that they were going to launch that operation down in the south. Now, the Russians have been unable to break through at all. As a matter of fact, we ended up seeing Russians lose this location over here. If you guys don't believe me, as I go to put it up, latest ISW assessment on the map shows this. Russians haven't been able to do jack and crap. This is an updated assessment that I ended up pulling off of them this morning. All the other maps also go and show the exact same thing. So Russia has in fact been held up over in eastern Ukraine. They're not getting anywhere. I mean, freaking nowhere. They fell into that trap perfectly. I said in a post this morning that whoever ended up like coming up with that plan, whoever ended up enacting it, that SOB needs to get promoted. Iron Dog coming in, gifting out Iron Dog coming in, just gifting out $10. And I appreciate every single one of you guys that had like came in and donated today. For some reason, I missed your guys' donation. By all means, let me know. So what do I see the way moving forward? I see Ukraine getting a lot of support immediately following these talks next week with Iran. So if you're over in Ukraine and you're currently getting slammed, give it another week and watch the Iran situation, because that's directly tying in to U.S. support for Iran, because believe it or not, Israel and the United States want Russian support. This is my opinion, by the way. Israel and the United States want Russian support over inside of Iran for dismantling their freaking uranium enrichment program. And so we're going to need Russia to do that. They got Russian scientists on the ground. If that falls through and you start seeing signs that those Russian scientists are being pulled out of Iran, believe me, we're going to go back in. We're going to bomb the shit out of Iran again. That's going to happen likely in the next 30 days or so. All right. If nothing ends up coming out of these different freaking talks, and then you're going to see Ukraine getting a lot of support. Trump's already came out, all right, this week saying that Putin just fills him with a bunch of BS. All right. So he doesn't like Putin. He doesn't. He really doesn't. He's frustrated with Ukraine, but he definitely doesn't like Putin. He knows that Putin's been lying to him. He knows that Iran's lying to him, but he's stuck between a rock and a hard place because he also needs Putin's support as far as Iran is concerned to take care of the uranium enrichment, because for some ungodly reason, he still believes that some deal is going to be possible. As soon as that falls through, Ukraine's going to get their support. Israel's going to bomb freaking Iran, right? And then the Houthis are going to get decimated yet again. And then we're going to go round and round, right? And I can't tell you where it's going to go from there. I hope you guys, in fact, did enjoy this broadcast, all right, of the Speak the Truth podcast, giving you an update from all around the Middle East, over inside of Eastern Europe as well. If you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'll be back here tonight, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right, notice the time frame that I said, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time over here on the Speak the Truth channel. Doing it 1 hour early tonight is kind of like a test out. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, peace, love, happiness, and God bless. I am out of here.